This past weekend, Spider-Man No Way Home swung into theaters, smashed box office records, and closed out Tom Holland's Spider-Man trilogy. So today we're going to stop and rank all 3 theatrical live-action Spider-Man from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 3 theatrical live-action Spider-Man. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. As we go into this will have spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home. If you haven't seen the movie yet, click away and you have been warned. Now, this is an interesting ranking for me because it feels like every time I re-explore this ranking, my thoughts are dramatically different from the last time. And Spider-Man No Way Home made it crystal clear exactly why that is. People, including me, love all 3 versions of this character. Therefore, when all 3 Spider-Men showed up on screen in that film, people lost their freaking minds, including this guy right here.
You gotta watch it in theaters.
It was so crazy in there, like everyone was standing up and screaming.
I know, my voice is gone. I was clapping, screaming.
There's a bunch of parts where people are like, whoa! Like, I've never seen that happen.
All 3 performances connected with people in a special way. I mean, Tobey and Andrew being in this movie was the worst kept secret in Hollywood. Still, when they walked through those portals, people stood up and shouted, they clapped, they cheered, because they love these portrayals of this specific character. So when you try and rank them, it's tricky because you're ranking 3 characters that have all connected with you in a special way. With that said, let's get started. In last place is Andrew Garfield. Now, to be perfectly clear, this is not a statement about him as an actor, so much so as the characterization in the films that he was in. The best thing about Andrew Garfield's version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield himself. I believe, without question, he is the best actor to portray the character with just amazing chops in his ability to emote.
Oh, please.
And believably portray a wide variety of emotions while being awkward, being charismatic, funny, intelligent, all while being a believable person. And he's partnered with Emma Stone, who I think is the best actress out of the love interests that we've had up to this point in time, who also can be entirely believable in each of the settings that she's in. And the 2 of them have great on-screen chemistry. Therefore, this set of movies, this version of the character excels in the little character moments.
He's a pathological liar, and he thought you were someone else.
Man, you don't have me on your computer.
Yeah, I mean, like, I took a photo of the debate team, and you're in the debate team, so.
Right.
Where they're just spending time being like normal people. They don't come off like characters in a comic book movie. They come off like real people in a drama, maybe a rom-com, something like that. And I love that aspect of this version of the character. Another place where it struggles, though, is that his version has a very incomplete character arc, largely because they obviously wanted to do more stories. They planned to do more movies. They had plans for an Amazing Spider-Man 3 and all these spin-off films. And then because of the poor reception, because of another set of things that came up, they rebooted it. And we never thought we'd get to see him again. Luckily, we did get to see him again. But because of that, you have a version of the character that still feels like he's in this early brooding stage where he never fully matures into something. It doesn't feel like we came to a destination. And even with some of the updates we got on where he's at in Spider-Man No Way Home, it was great to see him. I loved all of his little moments. I thought he was perfectly awkward and funny and goofy in all the right ways when he's like, I love you guys. I mean, just thought it was wonderful the way they used the character. But even the updates they gave us on where he's at shows him as a Spider-Man that's never found his full footing. Because he's like, after Gwen died, I just lost a little bit. I stopped pulling my punches. I became bitter. And so even in that, you have a Spider-Man that feels like he never became the Spider-Man that we know. As much as I enjoy him as an actor, even as much as I enjoy his performance, the characterization in those films, that version of the character, I think never fully arrived as Spider-Man proper. And what does this version, I think, miss the most? And I think the thing that's most off about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man Peter Parker is that because they needed to find a way to be different from Sam Raimi's version, which was so traditional, they chose to go in kind of this darker, more brooding direction where they explore Peter Parker's parents and this mystery of their origins. And I just think they picked the wrong direction to go. Kind of that teen angst, the brooding, with how far it goes in both of these films.
Where's my dad? He didn't think it was his responsibility to be here to tell me this himself.
Oh, come on, how dare you?
How dare I? How dare you?
I think is a bit inconsistent with who Peter Parker is in the comics and what you want from a Spider-Man that has tragedy, he has weight on his shoulders, but he is a light character. Likewise, by tripling, doubling down on the origins of his parents, I think it added layers that didn't really bring anything new to the character. Just made for a more convoluted backstory. It answered questions I wasn't asking. It was untapped ground. I think that's a fun thing about what they did. We haven't explored his parents before, so it was a little bit interesting. But then by making his father so integrated into the origin of Spider-Man himself, in which case it was Parker DNA in the spider, therefore only Peter could become Spider-Man. You change Spider-Man from being an everyman who randomly got these powers and goes on this journey to the chosen one where only it could have been him. And that fundamentally changes the character in a way where you lose something because of it. It just removes too much of what makes Spider-Man unique and special in their attempts to be unique, different, and special.
I'm gonna throw you out the window now.
Our runner-up is going to be the MCU version, Tom Holland. Now, the fun thing about Tom Holland's Spider-Man is that he is in an actual Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this version of Spider-Man gets to interact with the rest of the Marvel characters in a way that the other two haven't really gotten to do, other than their small little bit interacting with Doctor Strange for seconds in No Way Home. Otherwise, they're in standalone pocket Spider-Man universes. So immediately, there's something very fun about a Spider-Man interacting with other Marvel characters. But the thing specific to Tom Holland that I think is best about his version is that he feels like a 21st century teenage, naive, innocent, energetic superhero.
Hey, how long we been here anyways?
37 minutes.
What? 37 minutes? That's insane!
It captures that youthful energy. He feels like an actual teenager in his movies, in these films, and that in and of itself is unique. Now, Andrew and Toby had their moments in high school, their scenes, their sequences in high school, so you had a flavor of it. But the characterizations as a whole mostly didn't lean into that aspect of things, where Tom makes impulsive decisions frequently. He has the perceptions and the like, oh man, why can't I be Avenger yet? That urgency of teenagers wanting to be more mature than they actually are, not fully understanding the ramifications of things. It just nails that absolutely.
Okay, Spider-Man, don't flip. Yeah!
Even in the fact that he's surrounded by high schoolers that also respond to his superhero-dom like other high schoolers.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
And that John Watts and Sony and Marvel decided to kind of go in this John Hughes-inspired high school genre for this version, in of itself just brought something to it that was a bit interesting, different, unique, where you see Spider-Man as he is, which is a high schooler who is a superhero that's literally battling for the lives of half the universe. That's really cool. So how is his character arc when it comes to the Spider-Man journey? This is where it gets interesting. They really do the completion of the Spider-Man origin story in his third movie and sixth appearance inside of the MCU, where we'd kind of assumed that they had just done Uncle Ben before we joined in on the adventure. That was just something that happened that we didn't know about. And then No Way Home kind of made it pretty clear in this universe, things are different. And it's Aunt May is the one that teaches him his moral compass, teaches him with great power comes great responsibility. And it's her death that teaches him the lesson that the other two learned from the death of other people, mainly being Uncle Ben. And that is such an interesting way to do subversive storytelling of making us think something's already happened, and then we actually see it so late in the game. And I think that really fleshed out his version in an interesting way by doing that. Now, so what do I think this version misses about the character? And I think the big one kind of ties into what I just said about it at times feel like it's missing so many key ingredients of Spider-Man. And it seems like as soon as they rebooted it for the Holland universe, they wanted it to stand out separate from what they had done before, which was traditional Spider-Man, see the spider bite, Uncle Ben, great power, great responsibility, his first adventures. And I think because of that, you just missed so many essential elements of the Spider-Man mythology. And you know, some of, like I said, was a little bit improved by bringing in Aunt May as this version's version of Uncle Ben. That helps a little bit, but it still feels like, though we've seen this version of Spider-Man 6 times, we've spent more time with him in Washington, D.C. and in space and in Europe than swinging on skyscrapers in the Big Apple. And that's a little bit weird. That's a little bit strange. And so there's certain iconic images, certain themes that they've actively avoided, I would say somewhat to their detriment with this version. And if they continue on, maybe this issue will be resolved in the future as he gets a more full version of the character. It feels like this is a very extended version of origin story of the character.
MJ,
I'm Spider-Man.
What?
That's what you were going to say, that you're Spider-Man.
No. I'm not Spider-Man.
So why is he placed in this middle spot? It's what I just said. I think he captures the energy, the comedy, the charisma. He can emote. He's got a fun set of side characters. He interacts great with the universe. But they've avoided so many classic Spider-Man elements that it's tough for me to put him up top. Another thing I thoroughly enjoyed about No Way Home is that it ends with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, Spider-Man, feeling much more so like classic Spider-Man in this apartment by himself, listening to a radio scanner, and it just closes out with him like going out the window and swinging through downtown New York City. Actually, I don't know if that's downtown New York City, because I don't know New York City all that well, but just those classic images. Even doing that fleshed out this version a little bit better, but also highlighted one of the issues, or clarified one of the issues I've had with the series for a while, which is this has all been a very extended origin to get to the classic Spider-Man that I really want to see from Tom Holland. And I hope that he continues on and we do get Tom Holland, New York, classic Spider-Man stuff. I would love that. But coming in first place, Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And I think, simply put, they had a first mover advantage in that because they told the story first, they could just pull all the classic images and all the classic stories and tell it in a traditional way. And that in and of itself was fresh and new. And when you're Amazing Spider-Man just 10 years later, if you try and tell the classic story, then you're just rehashing what was just done. So you have to change things just for the sake of trying to be fresh and new. Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire just had to find a way to tell the story in a way that would connect with people. And I think they found out how to do it. So what do I think is best about this version of Spider-Man? I think it is what I just said. That it is the classic version of the character as a traditional nerdy kid trying to find his way through high school. And then after high school, trying to get a job and pay the bills while being a superhero, as well as being Peter Parker. And he needs to pay the bills. He's got a lady in his life and he just has that tension. And they explored all of that. And you get MJ, you get the Osborns, you have Aunt May, you have the death of Uncle Ben.
Over here, Uncle Ben.
And with great power comes great responsibility. You have the wrestling match that's straight out of the comics. All of this stuff, you get it here. And also because they got to have their complete trilogy, you have this full journey of him finding love, but having to push her away. Then you have the movie with the balance back and forth of him pushing her away by, well, being drawn to her.
Do you love me or not?
You have the revelation of her discovering who he is, and then them trying to work out what it's like to have a relationship with a superhero. Likewise, you have that ongoing relationship with Harry of their best friends, and then there's something that becomes a wedge between the two of them, and then they become enemies, and there's restoration. And so you just have this very complete arc with him. And while they didn't end on the best film, there was a good bit of resolution in most of the important arcs where they ended things, especially in particular with Harry and that friendship that was so pivotal to Peter as a character. And so in a lot of that, I discussed what was best. It also ties into how is his Spider-Man character arc. I think that's really what works here. It's a complete, holistic, traditional version of the Spider-Man origin story, movement into adult life, taking pictures, working for J. Jonah Jameson, and delivering pizzas to try and pay the bill. It's that classic story, and all these key elements are there. Now, what does this version miss? What's kind of off with this one? I just think it's dated. If you're kind of younger, if you were born right around when this movie came out and you watch it for the first time, it can feel a little bit, it certainly feels cheesy in the performance, the delivery of lines and stuff. It just feels like a different era of making comic book movies where before they'd fully figured out how do you make fun, lighthearted comic book movies that are grounded and comic booky, but realistic at the same time. They hadn't found that balance the way that it has been in the MCU. And so there's definitely some cheese in the way that it's all kind of done. So why is he in that number one spot for me? I think it simply is because he has the most complete Spider-Man arc. That you have the classic origin, you have the development of him into an adult, you have great power comes great responsibility, balancing of a love life, friendship, superhero-dom, stuff goes to his head. You just get so much classic Spider-Man, and for my money, most of it, almost all of it is really, really good. And even in the ways that Spider-Man 3 goes off, I still think it gets kind of the core character and his journey right. So for me, this is the most holistic and complete theatrical live action Spider-Man that we've gotten. And it was just great to see him again in the theater this past weekend. So he comes in at number one. If you enjoyed this video, I've done other rankings just like it before. You can check them out right over there. Also, if you want my detailed thoughts on each of these Spider-Man movies, I've done full spoiler reviews for all of them. You can check that out right down there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.